Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of All Access AM. I am Billy Embody. Happy Monday to you all, except Dabo Sweeney wishing Pete Golding happy Monday, and Pete Golding certainly not wishing Dabo Sweeney a happy Monday. But everyone else can feel pretty good about themselves and wish each other a happy Monday as we're all freezing across this country on this Monday. We're normally presented by our friends at Horn Legend on Thursdays, but did just want to mention this is the coat that I've been talking up. This is the jacket. We're keeping warm here. It's got all sorts of pockets on here. So want to appreciate them for keeping us warm in the All Access AM studio this morning, and appreciate all of you that are joining us on this Monday as the transfer portal has closed. We've stopped seeing players enter the portal from what we've seen out there. So that means all of the compliance offices around the country are breathing a sigh of relief in that respect. And now we're getting into some of the last bit of drama. And of course, involving multiple ACC programs now, Clemson, Miami involved, Duke, of course, at the center of one of them. And we've got a lot to talk about on this Monday morning. So appreciate you guys being with us, and appreciate all of the people who have subscribed to the channel over the last few days, have put some of the word of mouth requests out there for friends on our message boards, on things like that. And we have raced past the 300 mark. We've raced past the 400 mark, and we're now closing in on 500 subscribers to the show, which would be a huge milestone for us and would really allow us to do a lot of fun things because we get to use YouTube to monetize it. So please support the show. That helps us grow it. That helps us add things like more lights and kind of, add to our setup and things like that. So we appreciate all of you guys supporting us. All you have to do is go to All Access AM YouTube channel and just click that subscribe button. It is free to do. Doesn't sign you up for anything unless you want alerts when we go live, which we appreciate as well. But that is the house cleaning on that. We're excited. That is a huge milestone that we're approaching rapidly. So appreciate all of you guys here. Most of you here for the transfer portal drama discussion around the Clemson Ole Miss fiasco that is going on, which really has an end, unlike the Darian Mensah situation that's going on between Duke and Miami right now. And we'll get into all of that. I do want to opine on some of this as well. We'll run you guys down some of the details that, as far as I understand, and Twitter can be a dark, crazy place, but I did not lean on Twitter for this. I leaned on our people at Tiger Illustrated, some Ole Miss people that I trust as well out there to, kind of break down where a lot of this is at and kind of hear out Dabo's point on this, which I am, for full disclosure, supportive of coaches doing. I'm supportive of coaches going after other coaches, other programs for tampering, but you better have your house in order if you do. So I do want to say that, and we'll get into some of the drama around that. So appreciate you guys being here on this Monday. The Monday show is presented by our friends at Security National Bank. Security National Bank, they are helping many people around the country manage their personal wealth, their business, their future planning for retirement, all of those things. But they are at heart a family owned bank, and they can help you with your checking, your savings, your credit cards, health savings accounts, your mortgage, personal loans, and more. So make sure you visit securitynational.bank for more information on how they can help you. Give them a call. A lot of their in-person branches are closed, but online and mobile banking, of course, are available 24/7. But the weather in Dallas is certainly impacting one of their major HQs, but you can still give them a call, 402-344-7300, or toll free 844 SN Bank, SNB 1964, and reach out to people that can help set you up, learn more about what all they can offer you in the banking world. Again, it's a family owned bank at its core. So expect exceptional customer service and planning for you and your family and all the things in your life that matter on the banking front. So we appreciate Security National Bank and wishing them a happy 2026 and what we hope is a prosperous one as well for the banks, in particular Security National Bank. All right. Clemson versus Ole Miss, the transfer portal drama we didn't really know that we needed, but we got. And when we discussed Luke Ferrelli, Cal linebacker, one of the top young players in the ACC, transferring to Clemson, we thought it was certainly a big pickup for the Tigers. They would have paired him with Sammy Brown. That would have given them one of the top duos in the ACC. He was a top 40 linebacker in the portal. He was the ACC freshman of the year in 2025 as as a redshirt freshman, and became an honorable mention all ACC pick. Pretty good second year on campus after not playing at all at Cal in 2024. Would have been a cornerstone building piece for Tosh Lupoi, which I think is also lost in all of this, of course. But he is now headed to play in Oxford for Ole Miss for Pete Golding, giving them a key linebacker addition for the 2026 season. At that, you would think, okay, wow, just a recruiting flip, all of those things. But then Dabo Swinney had his press conference. Then the Clemson, I would say, machine got fired up in this direction and got rolling at the behest of Dabo Swinney wanting to go after portal tampering and wanting to set a precedence that you're going to see coaches go after other coaches for tampering. And Dabo Swinney said, I encourage other coaches to turn people in, to talk about it, to hold people accountable. And, I think that is something we need more of in the sport. I think it would help the sport. I don't think there's two pieces here. This type of tampering, this type of roster, uh, just building where you can grab people that have signed contracts and all those things, it is bad for college football. I've said that. I think it's bad for Darian Mensah to have signed a 2-year deal and now Duke be getting pantsed at the last second on their quarterback and him going to Miami in all likelihood. I think it's bad that Dabo Swinney and Clemson said, you know what, we're going to go down this road of transfer portal this, transfer portal that. We're going to make some additions. We're going to use it. And they get Luke Ferrelli. He is in class, which is a huge, huge piece of all of this, and ends up leaving and going to Ole Miss. All of that, I think, is bad. I think the drama around college coaches potentially calling out teams for tampering could be good for the sport until it's eventually eradicated. Right? Like if it's eradicated, we get a net win there. We have contracts, we honor contracts. We could even release players from contracts if it's not working out, and we can pay players a buyout if it's not working out. We can do all those things that are at the professional level because that's pretty much what we're at right now. But the drama of Dabo Swinney, good old Dabo Swinney going after Pete Golding at Ole Miss for taking one of his top transfers and coming to the press conference with a timeline and receipts, which we'll get into, is terrific drama for this offseason that will eventually run its course here in however long this is either, looked at by the NCAA, if at all, or just kind of how long the news cycle runs. But I love that we're seeing this type of drama in the sport because I think it keeps the sport at the forefront of being talked about. Yes, there's a lot of things that you could break this down with as far as what's wrong with college football and why we're all talking about this, which is at the root issue here, of course. But the fact that college football is being talked about, the drama around quote unquote free agency that has been created is not a bad thing in a sense. It is getting more eyeballs on college football. And until there is clear cut rules in place, because apparently there are not, we're going to get every now and again dust ups like we're having between Clemson and Ole Miss, dust ups like we're having between Duke and Miami, dust ups like we had between Washington and Damon Williams for a minute there. Those things that get talked about, and when you talk about money involved too and a power struggle, that is great theater for the game that keeps the game and its free agency period that we're all operating under still to this moment. at the forefront of the media carousel that we're going on, right? The end of last week, what was it? It was Dabo Swinney going after Pete Golding. It was the national championship game. It had already kind of been, run its course. People had already talked about Indiana and what they did in Miami, and look at Mario Cristobal, getting them, to the national championship game. The portal had taken over again. It's good for college football. It keeps it right at the forefront. And that was with NFC and AFC championship games going on this weekend as well. So I don't mind the drama around this, and I don't mind the move of Dabo Swinney going after Pete Golding. And I say this as somebody who knows Pete Golding well. I say this as somebody who actually am a fan of what Pete Golding is doing from the standpoint of getting his dream to lead an Ole Miss program that is near and dear to his heart, and in a state that's near and dear to his heart. And he's going to do it his own way. And he is a ball coach. He's coached under Nick Saban. That guy is just all about ball and trying to build the best roster he can build. And it'll be fascinating to see if it works under Pete Golding in Oxford. It really will be, because you have a machine that had been built at Ole Miss by Lane Kiffin, and a way of doing things at Ole Miss that had been built with Lane Kiffin, Billy Glasscock, their GM. And the Grove Collective has done an unbelievable job building that program. Are they going to keep up that trajectory under Pete Golding? That is going to be so interesting, because a lot of that was built around the roster construction process for Ole Miss. That's really what it is. And Lane Kiffin is terrific at calling plays and doing all those things. But the roster construction piece is being slept on, and that's something Ole Miss as a whole really bought in on doing it as a high level for that Ole Miss team. For Clemson is kind of the opposite. They have gone away from the norm now of the transfer portal. They didn't even approach it, and Dabo Swinney had won in multiple ways. Of course, having the high-powered quarterback and different offensive coordinators and all of those things that led Clemson to what Clemson is today, but they didn't touch the portal. And so now that they're going down this road, they're going into a new world of roster construction, and they're trying something new. And they try it and they assemble a pretty solid class here, because they don't feel like they needed an insane amount of difference making type of players in the portal. They needed to just revamp a little bit on their side of things, and they feel like they did that. And one key piece was Luke Ferrelli, and now he's going to Ole Miss. So let's dive into this a little bit more on Luke Ferrelli as we get into this kind of purely as best I can, kind of what the facts are that are out there, and kind of my take on it, and my take on Dabo Swinney, Graham Neff's press conference, all those things. And we'll have Larry Williams from Tiger Illustrated of On 3 on probably later this week, around the working around the snow and ice storms across the country here, to get him on the show and kind of break down Clemson's portal haul, the work that they had to do on all of this Luke Ferrelli stuff. And of course, Dabo Swinney making some coaching changes as well. And what that looks like in 2026 for the Tigers as they look to get back on the right side of things right now. Do want to say, and again, our Wednesday show presented by these fine people, but we are getting so many requests and clicks on our OPW Solutions link in our podcast episode description. You can find it here below. Once the show goes live on YouTube and gets posted. But OPW Solutions is our commercial services partner, and one of the things that they do around the country is they do snow and ice control, and they do it at an incredibly high level. And AJ Crow, friend of the show, just popped in the chat here and said we had over 500 stops this weekend. Incredible work. Make sure your company is taken care of at an extremely high level with our friends at OPW Solutions. They will take care of the snow and ice control. It is just incredible stuff, what they are doing across the country to keep people safe, but also take care of people's businesses and all of those things. So visit opwsolutions.com. The link is below. If you need snow and ice control, they will take care of you. Managing just an incredible group there in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and beyond. So appreciate AJ Crow popping in the chat with the snow and ice update. It is scary stuff out there. So hope everybody is staying safe. Again, Luke Ferrelli headed to Ole Miss now to play linebacker for Pete Golding. That is done. This is where things get interesting. And Ole Miss fans have a gripe with how things went down with Lane Kiffin and tampering and all those things. Here is, from what I understand, the difference here. And this is always the case. You ask, and I talk to multiple coaches all week long, just about portal things, about recruiting. The number one thing a college coach wants, number one thing when recruiting a transfer, is for them to sit in a classroom. Sit down in a classroom and go to class. That means it's done. Luke Ferrelli was sitting in a Clemson classroom in his 8 a.m. when Pete Golding allegedly texted him and said, I know you've signed. What's the buyout? Here's a screenshot of the revenue sharing contract that he offered. That is per Dabo Swinney. That is the root of this. Ole Miss fans will tell you Chris Jones, the Southern Miss linebacker, was enrolled in class, all those things. Ole Miss didn't start classes until January 20th. Chris Jones decommitted from Ole Miss January 12th. So unless there is some January term that is going on in Oxford that they had him in, which is very, very rare that transfers do that. It's very, very, very rare that transfers do that. He was not in a classroom. He was enrolled at Ole Miss. The big difference there, you had not sat in a classroom yet. So, and I checked on that with a couple of Ole Miss people that I know and got a pretty good indication that that is the difference here in this as we're all watching this unfold. So Chris Jones goes to play for Florida State now. Mike Norvell gets him, kind of does what Pete Golding and Ole Miss did to Clemson. So the Seminoles get a key linebacker, and we talked about him earlier this month and when he committed to FSU on the podcast. And for Ole Miss, they had to get Luke Ferrelli to withdraw, which you're still allowed to do. And at the same time, when you sit in a classroom, that is supposed to signal that you are officially out of the portal, you are officially gone, all of those things. So I do wonder how all of this is going to work out from that perspective, if this is, dove into by the NCAA, by, the powers that be. But so Dabo Swinney and Graham Neff held a press conference, and Chad Morris was there too. He ended up kind of being a side story to it as he was introduced as offense coordinator, and they talked about their plan. We'll break down Clemson again with Larry Williams of Tiger Illustrated later this week. But the violation has been reported to the NCAA per Graham Neff. And I think now we're seeing that process, be something that is going to be watched closely. And the NCAA, I don't think, has a ability anymore to really do much. But we're going to find out if they're going to do something here, because, this is, and if it is as egregious as Dabo Swinney and Graham Neff allege, with Pete Golding texting Luke Ferrelli to come to Ole Miss, leave, all of those things, then this should be some sort of kind of open and shut case. Now, what does that look like from the NCAA side of things? We'd have to see. But with Clemson going after Ole Miss in this aspect, this is, like I said earlier, I think this is good for the sport. I think it would help to see some of these agents that manage these players get their wings clipped just a little bit, some warning shots fired. And look, at the end of the day, and I've watched this, and I saw somebody on the Ole Miss beat that I know and got to know a little bit, post on his podcast that, this is going to deter agents from working with Clemson. Man, I've seen some nasty work to clients getting basically cut from schools, and that agent is right back around the next week, the next day with different players for that program to come get into. This is all a money move by many of these agents in particular to get their players to the highest bidder or the top two highest bidders, and that is what it's all about. So this agent, and I've seen who it is, well-known agent, in this space, and is going to have clients that will consider Clemson in the future, and other agents that will consider playing this game with Clemson and Dabo Sweeney. But don't sit in a classroom and then go to Ole Miss. Okay. That's where a lot of these college coaches would just be like, all right, well, cool. I guess we can have them in class for a month until the ad drop date if some universities have it a little bit longer, and they can still leave. So you're still not out of the woods until February, basically. That's where a lot of these coaches are just, probably pulling their hair out. I'm sure Dabo Sweeney and Tom Allen are pulling their hair out over this, but this is not going to deter Clemson as they get into this space with regards to the agents that are willing to work with them. Clemson has money. They spend a lot on their roster. We saw what their roster looked like on paper last year. This is a Clemson program that has money to burn in a big way on their roster in a big way. So Clemson continuing to dive into the transfer portal. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what comes from this, if anything at all. And, I think for me, though, I don't have a problem with coaches and universities and recruiting staffs and general managers and all these things working every single angle to build the roster that they can. But just be ready if now that Dabo Sweeney has fired those shots that you're going to get called out. Maybe it leads to more coaches calling it out, and that will be something to watch. Maybe it changes some behavior, but this is going to be something that I think at least serves as a warning shot. I don't know if we'll see anything come from it with the way the NCAA is these days, not really enforcing much of anything. And that's the world we live in. They're worried about getting sued, just like, college programs don't appear to be worried about getting sued. That's kind of the opposite. But you have a Clemson program that is at least standing up for itself. I don't know what's going to happen from it, but I thought it was a great move for Dabo Sweeney to stand up and say something. I personally don't think that Dabo Sweeney and the Clemson program is living with a clean house. That's just not the world you can live in the transfer portal and have some of the success getting some of the players that they did. But they're probably playing with at least a somewhat clean house. They're just a cleaning lady hasn't come in a week and a half or so, and generally they're not going to be, tapped on the shoulder for anything that they're doing. But Dabo Sweeney has a clean enough house that he felt the need to call this out, and we'll see if it leads to any change. But Ole Miss doing what it should do, just like Miami doing what it should do with Darian Mensah, trying to get him away from Duke at the last second to address a quarterback need. Because that's the world we live in, is there isn't much enforcement. There isn't much consequence around this. So those were the warning shots. I'll be interested to see if Dabo Sweeney lets this go. We'll have ACC spring meetings. Of course, that'll come after Clemson has spring football practice. I would imagine Dabo Sweeney will use his platform to talk about this from time to time over the course of the offseason, because you could tell he wasn't messing around in that press conference as they went after this in a big way publicly with what happened around the Luke Ferrelli to Ole Miss departure. As we get into Duke, Miami, Darian Mensah, do want to remind you guys, we are also presented by our friends at Corporate Magic. Make sure you check out Corporate Magic and what they can bring to the table for your company on an incredible scale, because they are professionals that have been building moments and memories that can last you a lifetime with companies, with brands around the world, whether it's national sales meetings, global broadcasts, streamed events, and production seen by millions. Everyone trusts Corporate Magic to work with their brand and build a event from design, planning, technology, all of those things that keep your audience fully engaged. They can handle it. So visit corporatemagic.com for more information on all the things that they do. You'd be surprised at some of the events that they've worked on across the globe that have really wowed you already, and you just didn't know it. So visit corporatemagic.com and know that big stages demand a partner who knows how to perform when the stakes are high. So we appreciate our friends at Corporate Magic for supporting All Access AM as we move on to the rest of our transfer portal breakdown. Duke and Miami continuing to squabble over Darian Mensah, the Miami future starting quarterback. Is that what we're going to call him? We will see how that plays out. Do want to shout out the chat, David Phelps. Good stuff, Wild Bill. I have no problem supporting you, pal. Thanks, buddy. We appreciate you being here on this Monday. Coming from Stony Smith, brother, this doesn't even need to be a story. Ole Miss had this happen to them last year with Tyler Barron. That wasn't a big story. I don't think there's a problem with the actual move on my end that Ole Miss made. I mean, that's the thing that I think people will get lost in this. There's not really enforcement going on. There's not any of those things that are happening. So if it's not happening, then go build your roster and go build it as aggressively and as just committed as you can be. That's the thing. I think it's fascinating that Dabo Swinney finally called it out and is encouraging other coaches to call it out. And that's going to be where I wonder what we'll see, if anything, whether it be the NCAA investigating, which is a whole nother deal, and you never know what happens with them. But if you do see other coaches start to say things like that, or it gets, kind of blown up because you had Graham Neff there, I'm sure, there's phone calls back and forth on this type of things as well. I know Greg Sankey and Jim Phillips, the two commissioners, were looped in, at least from the Clemson side of things. So again, it's something that pops up. It is not uncommon. The uncommon piece is Dabo Swinney going scorched earth on Ole Miss, and that could be any program. That doesn't have to be a Ole Miss thing. But there's a lot of things that have happened to Ole Miss over the last month and a half, 2 months, that are brutal for a program. Just the way Lane Kiffin was tampering with that roster and that whole thing and how it went down. And there's also, Ole Miss doing its thing and going after players and all of those things that just are, again, legal to do in a sense this time of year. So I just think it's really interesting that Dabo Swinney again kind of went scorched earth here. All right, let's get into the rest of the transfer portal news around the ACC, winding down on the transfer portal front. And there were still some key commitments, though, made. Miami did see a player leave for another ACC school. We'll get to that in a moment. But 2 Miami players did commit to the Hurricanes for the 2026 season. Nebraska defensive lineman Keanu Davis committed to Miami. He spent 2 years with the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Davis played in 25 games over the course of his 2 years. In Lincoln, 42 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, a pass breakup to his career at this point. He is somebody that can really impact the game, I think, as a probably number 2 defensive lineman in a sense here. He's going to be a big body in the middle for that Mario Cristobal team and what they're trying to do up front. He was really highly sought after in the transfer portal, played in 13 games, 6'5", 275. He's going to be a nice multi-year piece for the Hurricanes in this defense, as they have shown in what they've done the last couple of years, in particular on the defensive line, why you have to continue to invest, why you have to continue to covet those types of players in the transfer portal. Miami also picked up an offensive lineman. Jamal Merriweather committed to Miami. The Georgia redshirt sophomore has 2 years of eligibility remaining. He appeared in 15 games over the past 2 seasons in Athens, including 12 this past season as a key backup for the Bulldogs. He played in 3 games in 2024 as a redshirt freshman against Clemson, Tennessee Tech, and UMass. 6'7", 305. So he's another swing tackle, swing lineman type of ad for this Miami team as they continue to revamp this roster that is trying to reload, not rebuild, for another national championship run in 2026. And when you look at this Miami roster, they continue to upgrade the offensive line, as they weren't done adding East Tennessee State and UCF guard Jonathan Klein as well, 6'4", 315-pounder. Spent 2 seasons at UCF before heading to East Tennessee State for 2025, and started 2 of 7 games he appeared in. So again, they add depth. They continue to add to the lines and prioritize those positions up front, which is how they built, in a sense, this 2025 Miami Hurricanes team. And I think they're on the right track. They just have to get that major piece, and that's Darian Mensah. Darian Mensah continues to be in the news. Darian Mensah is working towards a kind of finalization of what he can or can't do. They are pushing for this to be moved up. He did file an emergency motion for reconsideration of the temporary restraining order. That hearing is still, I believe, to be moved up, but has not. I did not see much clarity on that over the course of the weekend. But what we are seeing is we're seeing Miami, Duke, and Darian Mensah appear to be trying to kind of negotiate this future for Darian Mensah and where things are headed, and maybe a buyout being negotiated, which could be something to watch on the front of Darian Mensah and what they're doing there, because this is something that does need to be, in my opinion, solved sooner rather than later, because Duke would love to have a little bit more clarity in that regard, but also Miami needs that clarity as well. And at the same time, Miami could have gone after this earlier. So I think that's one area that I don't feel as badly about if Miami does end up getting left at the altar. And for the record, I don't think they will. I think they will be probably with Darian Mensah at the helm of their quarterback room going into this season. But Darian Mensah is trying to get this hearing moved up so he can enroll, because technically Miami's ad drop date has been already passed, and the court did rule that he can't enroll in a school until this has all been worked out. So that is one area to keep an eye on here as we go through this. But Darian Mensah is waiting on that. There was a report from CBS Sports that there's some negotiating going on between Duke and Darian Mensah. So could that mean a financial settlement? Could that mean a change in the buyout or something like that? All of those things we're now watching, because that's where this really could be headed, in a sense, if you're watching closely here, as we see you know Duke and Miami duke it out over Darian Mensah and kind of his future and where things are headed. So really watching that closely as well on the transfer portal front is what is happening with Darian Mensah. We did see Miami linebacker Raul Aguilar commit to NC State on this Monday morning. He spent the past 3 seasons with the Miami Hurricanes, played in all 16 of Miami's games this season, 43 tackles, 1 pass breakup. He spent those 3 years with the Hurricanes, totaling 77 career tackles, 1 sack, and a pass breakup. He had 10 tackles across Miami's 4 college football playoff games. So you have a veteran linebacker going to NC State. This appears to be a good pickup for the Wolfpack, a guy who has that experience, has that, playoff caliber level of performance that you'd want to add to your team. So this is a huge, in a sense, win for NC State to kind of add to their program and build a winning culture and kind of maybe get them over the hump with different pieces that have that experience of going to the playoff and having success. So nice landing spot there for Raul Aguilar as he looks to play an even bigger role on this NC State team than what we saw him play at Miami the last couple of years in particular. And another thing too, Mohamed Toure is going to play in his 8th college football season. Just incredible stuff, as he is going to get all that time to go after playing another year. It's just insane. It really is insane. But he's battled through injury. It's legit. So good on him to pursue that. And look, if I could have spent 8 years playing college football, I would have. But you are certainly getting everything you can get out of college football by playing 8 years. So best of luck to Mohamed Toure as he gets into his 8th and final year now of college football. So really appreciate you guys for being here on this Monday morning with us. We are going to have Jamie Shaw of On3andRivals.com join us to break down ACC basketball world, as he'll be joining us at around 8:45 a.m. Eastern time. If you guys are still listening, feel free to tune in for that. Of course, that'll be great. But please scan this QR code in the top corner of your screen and subscribe to All Access AM, the YouTube channel. We've had a bunch of people subscribe. We are over 400 subscribers to the channel right now, which is just awesome. It's really helping us grow the channel and continue to deliver ACC basketball, football, portal, recruiting coverage for you guys Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 to 8 a.m. Central, 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. And we're enjoying it. We're having a blast doing it. So we appreciate all of you guys who are here with us every day in the chat. We've got interaction, and we love to do that. And if you want, you could post on the All Access AM YouTube channel page. Ask us some questions. If you have some interesting topics you want to hear more about, we'll be glad to talk about them. So please do that, and we'll get those answered for you. We are going to have, as we get into February, more of a team-specific episodes, kind of looking at programs as a whole. We'll have some of these reporters and maybe some coaches join us and set up some cool discussions around what the future looks like for all of these programs, as the transfer portal will have been closed by then, and we're going to see these rosters in large part set. So be sure to be subscribed for that. We're racing towards 500. It's a huge goal for us, so make sure you do that as well. Want to remind you as well, our Monday show presented by our friends at Sportsmo. The Sportsmo app has a new addition. It is college basketball, men's and women's, ability to bet, quote unquote, on those games of your favorite college team, whether it be micro donations or major donations. You can do that. And it's all tax deductible through the Sportsmo app. That's sportsmo, mo.org, to download the app, learn more about how you can directly support your favorite college's student athlete benefit fund and help impact winning on the court right away.
College basketball hits different with Sportsmo. You tap, they score. You pledge, they drop a 3. You give as a group, they win as a team. At this point, you're not watching a game, you're in it. Download the app, fund your wallet, and get in the game. Download Sportsmo. Power the play.
We appreciate Sportsmo for supporting All Access AM. Big piece for us there. So always fun. I mean, college basketball, multiple games a week. You get a chance to make some micro donations around points or rebounds or wins, losses. You can't bet on losses, but it is a way to kind of tie yourself to your team a little bit more and support them directly with donations to the student athlete benefit fund. So appreciate our friends at Sportsmo. They're continuing to grow like crazy. So make sure you jump on board for that. They are going to have a lot of fun breaking all of that down. Let's see what else we got on the rundown here. Early top 25 is coming out as well. This is always a way too early thing, but people are caught up in the national championship run for the college football playoff and watching that unfold. A lot of people that do top 25s don't have too much time to watch roster construction and know what roster constructions are being looked at like. And then they turn around the next week or two after the national championship and all of a sudden are able to rank the top 25 early teams. And it is a fascinating thing to watch unfold, the way you can get certainly caught up in forgetting what just happened in the college football season, and also just going right back to your quote unquote old ways of thinking about the top 25. and what it should look like in your mind. I mean, programs that did not have seasons that they wanted yet popping right back into the top 25, or programs that have made coaching changes because they were not good at all and eventually going right back into the top 25. I think it's kind of a hilarious, uh, let's just say, hilarious exercise to go through, is to try and do a way too early top 25. And the fun part is fans get caught up in it. That's why people do them, is because people feed them. And I think the top 25s, the way too early top 25s, and I'll have to think about mine a little bit, but I think those are, if you're going to do them right after, there is a little bit of a shock factor that people clearly have in picking them. And if you look for through that 15 through 25 range, that's where you're always going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a Penn State in this case. You're going to see a Michigan in this case. And those are teams that I bring up from the standpoint of Penn State didn't have the year it wanted to by any means, and they made major changes. And I think Matt Campbell is going to do awesome there. I do think it is such a culture shift that I wonder what 2026 will look like, and it'll say a lot about where that program was from a roster standpoint if they have immediate and a high level of success under Matt Campbell versus maybe a kind of step back, and from the standpoint of having another middling season and then ascending to where I think Matt Campbell can get that program, which is Big Ten championship level caliber team year in, year out. Michigan has also had so many changes. Utah has seen their roster gutted. I just don't think, Utah is going to be one of those top teams. That is going to be a struggle for them with all the changes around their program and that kind of overhaul. And then you just have some teams that have quarterbacks coming back that are popped in there, and at the same time, Virginia, I've seen them in the top 25. That's a heavy lift. Bo Pribula in that program, Eli Holstein in that program. That's who you're betting on. I think they're both good quarterbacks, but that's a heavy lift again for Virginia to be a top 25 team again and kind of build off of the magical season that they did. We'll get into some more of our way too early top 25, but I saw one today before the show that had Miami outside the top 5, and I just think that's silly. I think anytime you have a national championship team in appearance, odds are you should be starting in the way too early top 25's top 5, but that's just me. I can see why Indiana, I can see why Ohio State are up there, but Miami deserves a little bit more on that front. The college football playoff will stay at 12 teams in 2026, that being reported on Friday. The 16-team model, the 24-team model, all being discussed, but ultimately we're going to stick at 12 in 2026, which I am a big fan of. I'm totally good with in that respect. Is we see you have I thought a good 12 teams outside of the group of 5. You have to kind of fix that in a sense. And Notre Dame, of course, if they're in the top 12, they'll get an automatic berth, which I don't understand why people cater to Notre Dame and just do that. And I don't say that as a Notre Dame hater. It's just fascinating to watch a brand like that get catered to in this world of in this ruthless world of college football that we're in. I mean, it's just crazy to me. But that is where we're at with it. And you do have a Notre Dame team that's going to be included in the top 20, in the top 12 in the college football playoff if they're in the top 12. So that is one tweak that's going to happen this year. And the top 4 AQ are going to be all Power 4 conference champions. So I think that's going to, of course, improve the top 12 teams that ultimately make the playoff in a sense, but you're also going to have less spots for at large, which is now the argument to go to 16. And it's something that will be worked out eventually. I still think we're going to see a 16 team playoff. I think that's the wrong move from the perspective of you're going to see the league kind of watered down a little bit, and or not the league, the playoff watered down a little bit with teams that, yeah, could go on a run and make a national championship game. Like I think Miami was more of a product of the ACC not being a 9-game conference slate and not having an extra conference slate that would have solved so many of their tiebreaker issues. Like, that's not talked about enough with the ACC tiebreaker. Like, when we see the ACC go to, in large part, 9 games next year, you're going to see less of this logjam of teams that really probably aren't that good to get in there. And credit Duke, credit Virginia. They won their bowl games. They did all that. They kind of held up their end of the bargain after appearing in the championship game. But you don't have a really good footing to, push Miami just past all of those teams and pop them in, because the playoff committee, which releases their rankings on Tuesdays, has them in there. I don't think that's the right move. I think that's going to work itself out organically. So Miami was a national championship caliber roster from the get-go. I think some of these teams that, if they went to 16, are just not going to be national championship caliber rosters. And that's where I think 12 is a good thing. I think they've got to figure it out a little bit, just tweak it another year, see what we get out of that. But speaking of national championship, the NCAA national championship for men's basketball, a few months away, but ACC play is heating up. And to break it all down, we do bring in our friend Jamie Shaw from On3 and Rivals. Really excited to have him on once again. Jamie, good morning to you, sir. Hope you're staying warm and staying out of the cold.
Yeah, Billy, we are not warm or out of the cold where I'm at. Pretty eventful weekend, obviously. We had about 4 inches of snow, which isn't terrible, but a couple of those inches were ice, which makes it a little bit tricky moving forward. So hopefully we get above that freezing temperature, and it kind of stays there for a couple of days.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Thaw out a little bit.
Yeah.
ACC basketball heating up, of course, and a lot of programs had to deal with some shifting game times. But the action this weekend, pretty good stuff for those of you locked in your house and seeing some ACC basketball. Let's start with probably the biggest game of the weekend, UNC UVA. UNC bounces back, gets a win at Virginia, 85-80. For the Tar Heels, it was getting precarious there. We were starting to watch, see if they were kind of on fraud watch after that West Coast trip. But they bounced back nicely now, back to 4-3 in league play and 16-4 overall with that win over UVA.
Yeah, and it was kind of a tale of two halves for UNC too, because this is a big year coming in for Hubert Davis and for the Tar Heels and everything. And you saw them, as you said, drop a couple of them that were questionable coming into this game, and then the first half here, they're just getting punched in the mouth. You saw the 26 rebounds coming from Virginia. Virginia shot over 40% from three in that first half, and North Carolina fought and clawed to get, I think it was within 9 at halftime, but they were just getting out physicaled by this UVA team in the first half, and it was very interesting to kind of watch and see the adjustments that were made after halftime.
And when I look at UNC and getting that win, does it feel as big as it looks in a sense, or is Virginia still a team that maybe just kind of started league play hot and they're kind of I don't know, landing a little bit more around where they're at, just a step below that top tier of the league, or is this UNC kind of that West Coast trip kind of a revitalization of that roster in a sense?
No, for sure. This is a huge win for UNC. Anytime you're able to go onto the road, down almost double digits at halftime against a ranked team, I don't think Virginia had lost at home this whole season. This is a very good win, especially in the manner that they did it. They came out in the second half and just punched right back. They shot 63% from the field. Jaren Stevenson goes for 17. You had freshman Derek Dixon, who had a fantastic game taking care of the ball. I think after halftime, UNC only had 1 turnover while shooting over 60% from the field. And then you had your stars, Caleb Wilson and Seth Trimble, kind of close the game out for them. With what they had going on I don't want to say it's a must-win situation, but in a situation where they needed a win to come through and they needed a positive mojo to happen, going into Virginia, a ranked team, taking that win away in the manner that they did, because they took that from Virginia. that was a big win for UNC. And it's going to be interesting to see the momentum that possibly could carry moving forward.
UNC and Virginia both kind of getting, I don't want to say bye weeks because there's no days off in the ACC, but Georgia Tech, Syracuse this week for UNC, and then Syracuse getting Notre Dame, BC this week. So kind of a chill week for them. But Clemson did not have a chill week. They lost to NC State earlier in the week, and then they get a bounce back against Georgia Tech. What was your takeaway from Clemson losing at home to Will Wade coming in there earlier that week and just obviously getting back on track this weekend?
What you're saying from Clemson is that they have relatively narrow margins for error because a lot of what they do is predicated on the defensive side of the basketball, their ability to hold their opponents, I guess, to less points than they score, as opposed to scoring more points. They're holding their opponents to less points than they score. So the margins are a little bit narrow. So if things can go a little bit left for them, as you saw with the NC State and everything, that's how a game could go for this Clemson team. With that being said, Brad Brownell is a heck of a coach. He's the tenured guy within the league right now, and they've seen a lot of success over these last couple of years, especially tournaments and all of that. And this team is a good team. Maybe it doesn't have the star power these past Clemson teams have had, but they figured out something within what they're doing to continue to get wins. And that they've strung off prior to that NC State game, they strung off quite a few wins in a row. And it's still moving forward. They have a very favorable schedule within this ACC. Looking at who they've played and who they have coming up. So, things fall right for Clemson.
NC State, of course, getting that win. They're now up in the top 30 of the net rankings, 27th. They are 1-4 against quad one opportunities. Same with Clemson, 1-3 in a sense. But they've kind of taken care of business. They had that one bad loss. I think it was to Georgia Tech earlier in league play for NC State. But Will Wade's group kind of a little Jekyll and Hyde in a sense. But in league play now, getting that first quad one win was really important. Sometimes you can't make the NCAA tournament when you have 0 quad one wins. They had to get one under their belt to kind of make it seem like a dream that could be potentially achieved.
For sure. And this NC State team, it's a little bit unique with what they've done so far in this ACC. Right now, they're 4-0 on the road in ACC play and 1-2 at home with what they've done. That's a little bit unique when it comes to hold and serve at the house and all that type of stuff. But they're a team that lives and dies by the 3-point jump shot. In league play, they've shot 40% from three as a team. They're putting up points, and they're figuring out ways to kind of get it done. Quadir Copeland was awesome. Coming up this past week, he's had a really turn going into the last kind of the second half of what they've had, and they're relying on some guys who believe. There's a belief within that locker room. There's a belief within that team to be able to go out and kind of get it done, and they're creating turnovers and making threes. So the aggressiveness on defense coupled with making shots is a recipe to find some success.
Looking ahead, big Monday night here. That's the nice thing about the NCAA and NFL seasons coming to an end with college football is we get some big Monday action, and Duke is getting right to it with a big matchup against Louisville. What are your early thoughts on this one as Louisville getting right on track here now with the return of Michael Brown?
Yeah, so this is a fully healthy Louisville team. So they have Michael Brown, Ryan Conwell. They have everybody in there this past game with both of them in there. They took 66 shots. They shot 39% from the field. Conwell had 15. Michael had 20. They played efficiently, and they played good basketball, the type of basketball they want to play, especially on the offensive end of the floor. What you're going to see in Duke is obviously everything's predicated around what Cam Boozer does. Cam Boozer is the central hub of what the offense is, and John Shire's going to do a great job of putting his players into a area to find success. This Duke team plays with some physicality. They're aggressive on the defensive end. It's going to be interesting to see if this Louisville team can match the physicality and can they get enough stops. That's going to be the thing. Obviously, on the offensive side of the floor, this Louisville team is high firepower. Can they get enough stops to be able to compete with this Duke team?
Do you think they compete with this Duke team on this Monday night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. I think with the way that they play offense, I think with the way that they shoot the three ball and they kind of run their things around, three being worth more than two and playing the analytic game on the offensive end of the floor. I feel like this could be a good game, but Duke's not going to beat themselves, and Louisville's going to have to play a very good game.
And, for Louisville, what did you see from Michael Brown in his return? I mean, did you see him ramped up enough to make a major impact in this one?
Well, when it comes to Michael, what he brings to this team is he brings ball control. When he was not in there, they kind of struggled getting into their sets, getting into the half court, and finding somebody who's able to collapse the defense and then spray the ball around and get the team good looks at the basket. Michael's able to do that. Michael's also able to pull gravity when it comes to his jump shot as well. So long story short, with Michael Brown on the floor, what this does for this Louisville team is it opens up their playbook. They're able to diversify, I guess, what they're able to do offensively with the ball. And, be a little bit more multiple when it comes on the offensive end of the floor. But, Michael, he looked good. The back, obviously, when it comes to a back, you never know when it's going to stiffen up or when it's going to have all that type of repercussions. But he looked good in the first game. He looked comfortable in the first game back. And Louisville looked very good in that win over Virginia Tech.
It's going to be fun to watch. We'll have you back on very soon, Jamie Shaw, to break it all down on the ACC basketball front. We appreciate you being here on this Monday. Stay warm, my friend.
Billy, I appreciate it, man.
There he goes, Jamie Shaw joining us on All Access AM to kick off your Monday morning. Big Monday night, Duke, Louisville, 6 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. Tuesday night's matchups, Wake at Pitt is going to be another one that people are going to be watching, of course, as that one gets going at 5 p.m. Central on ACC Network. Virginia then heads to Notre Dame, 6 p.m. ESPN2. Syracuse at NC State at 6 on ESPNU. Georgia Tech at Virginia Tech, 7 p.m. Central Time on ACC Network. That is your Tuesday night matchups. We'll be back, of course, on Wednesday and Thursday to break down the rest of the week and weekend of ACC basketball. We love doing that for you guys. Well, James Fletcher on, talk a little bracketology as well now that we're into the full swing of things with it being college basketball season, nearly a month of ACC play in the books and February rapidly approaching. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, All Access AM. Appreciate all of you guys who are in the chat this morning, but please use the QR code in the top corner of your screen to scan it and go right to All Access AM YouTube. Help us hit 500 subs on that channel, please. Huge goal, huge piece for us to get to that level. So appreciate all of you guys who have done that. And those of you in the chat, we really appreciate you guys showing up. Juan, good to see you again. You were with us last week. The ACC is a wacky conference. This is a wacky group of storylines between Duke, Miami, Clemson being involved. Again, I just think it's great because it has people talking about the league in a sense. You also have the question, do you think LSU and Lane Kiffin fall on their faces in 2026? Lots of moving parts and pressure is on to win big. I do not think they fall flat on their faces. I think this is, and again, we talked about the top 25 and building those rosters and trying to get an early feel for it. I am high on Sam Leavitt. I'm not overly high on him being one of the great college quarterbacks, but I do know this. Lane Kiffin's going to put him in position to make a lot of plays in that offense. I think they have just enough at running back to make it a multi-dimensional offense because they've upgraded their offensive line in such a big way compared to last year. They've completely revamped that room. Jordan Seaton, we talked about him in Miami earlier this year on the pod and what that could look like. Well, Jordan Seaton's going to LSU. They've got a couple of key pieces on the offensive line there. Blake Baker's one of the best defensive coordinators in college football. They have certainly spent a lot of money on this roster. I think it will take him 2 to 3 years. I could see it in the second year being in Atlanta with that roster and the way they build it. It's just, as Lane Kiffin likes to say, it's just kind of different at LSU. And they are really putting them in complete control, which we've seen the result of what Lane Kiffin and Billy Glasscock, the GM, how they run things. And it's different. It is not everyone's cup of tea, but LSU kind of going down the path they've gone down with Brian Kelly and kind of the fall of Ed Ogeron there, that is something that they're willing to try. They're willing to try Lane Kiffin for all of his tweeting and trolling and quirks. He's a really, really, really good football coach, good football mind. He's got a great GM. I don't think they fall flat on their faces. I think they get back to 10 wins this year. I just don't know if it's enough to get to Atlanta in year one. But There's going to be tons of intrigue around that team, and there's going to be, I think, a good bit of early success for Lane Kiffin and company. So with that, guys, please support our sponsors. You've got Security National Bank. Go to securitynational.bank. For more, go to corporatemagic.com for more on how they can help your company achieve incredible events. And then, of course, you've got our friends at Sportsmo, sportsmo.org. Download the app and start donating to your favorite college team with micro bets. And of course, AJ Crow, our friend at OPW Solutions, handling snow and ice control for you guys in need right now in Texas, Oklahoma, and Arkansas. Give them a ring today, 214-444-2305. I got it memorized. How about that? Make sure you guys reach out to them today and see what they can do for you and your family and your business and all of those things, because it is crazy out there right now. So make sure you guys do that. Please, please, please subscribe to All Access AM on YouTube. Help us grow the show. Like, rate, review the show on Apple or Spotify as well. Appreciate you guys being here on this Monday morning. Thanks to Jamie Shaw for stopping in and talking a little basketball as well. We'll catch you Wednesday morning on another edition of All Access AM. Hope everybody stays safe and stays warm and that you've got power on in your house. And if you do, watch All Access AM. I'm Billy Embody. Have a great Monday, everyone.